I'm Blair Best. It's Wednesday here on The Story, and tonight, an update on proposed changes to Oregon's bottle bill that we told you about last night. We'll get into the details and share some of your thoughts. Plus, a plan for a ferry service on the Willamette River is being revived. Is it a long shot or a linchpin for revitalizing downtown? The major hurdle ahead. But first, a marathon meeting happening at Portland City Hall, expected to last well into the night. More than 120 amendments are being proposed to the mayor's budget plan. Some are causing quite the uproar. It's our big story tonight. Well, happening right now, Portland City Council is more than 6 hours into a marathon budget meeting. There's a live look. It started at noon following a different council meeting this morning and is set to go well into the night tonight. City councilors are listening to the public and each other about the proposed city budget and how to close a shortfall of more than $90 million. All right, well, we are getting a little bit of a late start tonight on our programming. We've had some technical issues here at KGW, but we made it and we're here with you. Now back to the story. Mayor Keith Wilson submitted his $8 billion budget proposal earlier this month. He wants to provide more funding for public safety, homelessness, and city cleanup, while eliminating some city staff positions and reducing maintenance at city parks. Today, councilors got to present their amendments to the mayor's plan, and there were more than a few. The 12 city councilors submitted a whopping 126 budget amendments, and some of them are already setting off some fireworks. So many people signed up to make public comment that it would have taken 7.5 hours to get through it all. Council decided to give them 2 hours. Many of them spoke out around public safety in Portland. The mayor wants to add nearly $20 million to police, fire, and Portland street response, but several councilors want to take money away from the police budget and direct it to other things. Councilor Candace Avalos wants to send $1.9 million of police money to parks. Councilor Steve Novick wants to decrease police spending by $2 million and send that money to parks and have unarmed public safety specialists to do welfare checks instead of police. Councilor Samir Kanal wants to reduce money spent on police overtime hours and convert it to one-time funds instead of ongoing. And Councilor Angelita Murillo wants to send $2 million of money earmarked for police towards Vision Zero and traffic safety improvements. Public safety, always bringing lots of public comment.
So many people come in and talk about how they've been victimized, how their apartments have been broken into, their cars have been broken into, condos, houses, and what they can do, and ask, what can the police do for us? And the answer we get is, we're trying, but there's not enough police out there. So I'm here to support the mayor's budget when it comes to fully funding the police so we can hire the amount of people that we need to support Portlanders and the victims that are here.
Police cannot solve our housing affordability crisis. Luxury apartments sit vacant while people languish on waiting lists for affordable housing. Police cannot change the fact that Oregon was number 49 and 50 in the nation for substance use and mental health treatment access. Police cannot answer phones for the overworked case managers juggling 3 agencies to get their clients into housing. Police can't open a spot in a treatment program or give traumatized people therapy after years of sleeping outside.
Now, just about an hour ago, Council started talking about some of the amendments, including to the police budget. And Portland Police Chief Bob Day warned councilors about taking money away from his department.
And we have been talking about this since the 1st of January, and we've been talking about this for almost 35 years of my service in the Police Bureau. And the reckoning is it a priority or is it not? I believe it is. I believe it is based upon not only my experience, but based upon the numbers, the facts, the conversations, the relationships, the sadness I see and hear in the victims' voices at their lack of services, our lack of responsiveness, our inability to engage, our inability to provide the level of service that Portlanders deserve and expect.
Now, another controversial proposal came from councilors Mitch Green and Jamie Dunphy to cut millions meant for Prosper Portland. Now, that's the agency responsible for economic development and helping small businesses. Within just the last hour, we learned that amendment failed. But it sounds like council will be wanting to discuss the funding for that group in the future. Tonight, council must approve a budget of sorts before leaving, but that is not the final approval. Similar to Multnomah County's budget talks, the approval is basically saying that it's the working document that councilors can still make changes to before adopting the finalized budget on June 18th. Now, one thing that did happen earlier today before all the budget talks, council's approval of the largest water and sewer rate increase in more than a decade. Rates will go up by more than 6%. OPB reports the average household bill would be around $160 a month. The rate hike takes effect in July. Now, one of the more contentious amendments introduced today was introduced by Councillor Steve Novick, who represents Southeast. He floated the idea of closing 2 community centers and using that money for city park maintenance instead. John Adams has been following that for us, and he's at City Hall with the details. John.
Hey Blair, Novick's amendment would close the Multnomah Art Center, which is located in Southwest Portland, and the Community Music Center in Southeast Portland. Since it was proposed, it's been met with shock and pushback. Now, over the last 7 decades, Portland's Community Music Center has been a place for students to learn music and get affordable lessons. The center is housed in an old Portland firehouse, which has deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed. But board members told me they were caught off guard by the proposal that would shutter the program completely.
So we know there's deferred maintenance, but we were never told that it was on the chopping block or to be closed. There's all sorts of research about how music helps people in their lives. It decreases drug use, it decreases absentee in schools. It'll be a huge loss for the city if it closes.
So John, talk to me. How has reaction from the public been so far?
Well, Blair, there's been a lot of reaction today. Like we heard earlier, there were 7 hours worth of testimony people signed up for today. Leaders from both of these centers urged people to come out and share their thoughts about why they want these centers to stay open, and they sure did. Of the 2 hours of testimony that city council members heard today, the majority of those testimonials were of people who wanted these 2 centers to stay open. Blair.
And it is worth noting that when Mayor Keith Wilson released his initial budget proposal, a big selling point of his was that all community centers would stay open. It'd be quite the reversal if that ends up not being the case. John Adams at City Hall tonight. We'll keep an eye on that amendment. John, thank you. Now, as the debate continues over what city services to fund and which ones to cut, we're looking at a plan that's been in the works for years, and one that advocates say would help downtown's revitalization efforts. Could an electric passenger ferry system soon be coming to the Willamette River? Well, that all depends on a critical hurdle: how to pay for it. If you've lived in Portland for a while, you've likely heard the idea of a ferry running along the Willamette River. Those behind the plan,
we as private citizens are stepping in,
believe the time for ferry transportation is now.
We can do this.
Susan Bladholm founded the nonprofit Friends of Frog Ferry 8 years ago.
And it was a group of concerned citizens who just said, hey, really from a community development and vitality perspective, why aren't we using our rivers to navigate around Portland?
The vision looks like this: 7 ferries making 9 stops between Vancouver, Washington, and Oregon City, stopping near the Moda Center, OMSI, Milwaukee, and Lake Oswego. Each vessel would carry up to 100 passengers, and the boats would all be electric.
We really consider this to be a linchpin in the revitalization of downtown, of bringing office workers back into the central city.
Xavier Stickler sits on the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Downtown wants workers back in the central city. The neighborhood wants to bring back workers, but we don't want them all just piling into cars and having miserable commutes on gridlocked freeways.
I do get stuck in traffic quite a bit. I feel like most of my life is in a car because I'm constantly commuting everywhere. I think that would be a great different style of commuting that I've never had before.
Another one of the stops would be at this vacant dock on the Southwest waterfront, right by OHSU.
And we would love to use this dock. It's owned by the city of Portland. As you can see, really not much use here, unfortunately. Actually, some of the use has not been for positive things.
According to a 2021 survey of OHSU members, 700 people said they commuted to the hospital, the majority employees. 78% said they would be interested in taking the ferry to OHSU.
Right now, that commute, 87% are taking single occupancy vehicles to commute into work. It's taken them about half an hour to get here. It's over an hour by transit, and by ferry it's 25 minutes.
Here's the problem. The group needs $20 million to put a boat on the water. They're asking the city of Portland and the state for $10 million each to fund a pilot project. Portland City Councilor Olivia Clark represents District 4 west of the Willamette, including downtown. She's also the chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. She told us, quote, "I appreciate the community-driven enthusiasm and vision behind Frog Ferry. This project comes at a time when the city is facing a stretched budget and a tremendous backlog of infrastructure maintenance needs, as outlined in a recent audit." She went on saying, "I am interested in taking a closer look at the costs to the city, both in terms of staffing needs from the Portland Bureau of Transportation and capital improvements at the dock sites managed by Portland Parks and Recreation."
We're not asking for city general fund dollars. I mean, we're very aware of this incredible shortfall that the city is facing. However, there is that PSEF fund, and there is now a category for transportation decarbonization.
The Portland Clean Energy Community Benefit Fund, or PSEF, invests in community-led projects that help fight climate change. Mayor Keith Wilson has proposed $38 million in his budget for PSEF, about $10 million less than the program had last fiscal year.
So our intention is to apply for $4 million for this cycle, which is due later this May, and then year over year to be coming back to build up to that $10 million to get us a boat on the water in 3 years.
There are only a few projects that can reactivate downtown in a short amount of time. We can have a boat on the water in 3 years. That is the time frame that downtown needs. We need some juice now.
Now, Portland Mayor Keith Wilson did not include funding for Frog Ferry in his proposed budget, and it's not included in any budget amendments submitted by councilors. But the team behind Frog Ferry, they're not giving up. In fact, advocates were set to testify in Salem today regarding their $10 million ask from the state. Representative Susan McLean, the co-chair of the legislature's Joint Committee on Transportation, told us they have, quote, "no comment on the Frog Ferry plan." Well, talk to us. What do you think about ferries running along the Willamette? Would you use it? Why or why not? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino joins us now. He's here to talk about snowpack in the region. But before we get to that, Matt, I understand you did a test ride of sorts on one of these ferries.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, they did a test ride, if you will, not on an electric ferry, but on a boat from St. John's in Cathedral Park down to downtown Portland, just to give people a feel of what that would look like. And so it was pretty cool to sit there and imagine, like, okay, I could be sitting on I-5 right now, or I could be riding the river and working on my laptop, or just, you know, doing the ospreys and the eagles that are flying around out there. So it's a really interesting idea, and Portland is one of only a few cities in the country that has a major waterway that does not use it for public transportation. So it seems like a resource that could be harnessed and put to good use. But
yeah, good point.
Always comes down to money, of course, right?
Of course.
All right, let's talk snowpack a bit, Blair, because it's been an interesting spring, and I'll show you what the spring has looked like temperature-wise in Portland a bit. But first, I'll start with this map of the entire western United States, and we'll start with the areas that did really well. These blue areas, 130 to 150% of snowpack. This was as of a couple days ago, as of May 19th, and this is data compiled by the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS. So you can see where the really good snowpack is: Southern Oregon and Northern California and parts of the Sierra, all well above average. What about the rest of the West? So let's fill the map out a little bit more. Areas that are right around average, not that much. The Central Basin of California here had about average snowpack. What about the rest of Oregon and Washington, still not filled in? Well, when we go to the 70 to 90%, then that includes most of Oregon, a little bit of Washington. So that's not bad. Our snowpack is okay, and I got more numbers for you on that in just a minute. But if we expand the map and fill out the rest of the map, the rest of the West, Wow, look at all the yellow and the orange and the red showing snowpack at 50% or less than 50% of average through much of the Great Basin, the Central Rockies, the Northern Rockies, and the North Cascades here in the Northwest and in Washington. So our snowpack in Oregon, especially Southern Oregon, the best in the West, basically. Let's break this down another way. This is compiled by the folks, this is data rather from the Northwest Avalanche Center for the snowpack up at Timberline. I'll zoom in on this so we get a better read on it. What you're looking at, the orange line, that's this year. The blue line, that's average snowpack. You can see it rises and rises and then peaks around April 1st, and then it begins to drop off, right? And you can see that this year, 2024, 2025, really tracked quite well along it. We had that big bump in early January when our snowpack got a big boost, but then it got rained on, and it fell back to about average. It never really dropped below average until now, till the beginning of April. And there's a good reason for that, which I'll show you in just a second. But now let's look at a different way. Timberline and Mount Baker, so Northern Oregon, Northern Washington. January 1st, we were way above average. And even though our snowpack went up February 1st and April 1st, the average went down a little bit because, or the percent of average went down because the averages go up. We've done much better than Mount Baker. They dropped down to 86% of average on April 1st, and now about 85% of average, which again, isn't terrible. It's not what we'd like to see, but it's not terrible compared to the rest of the West. Here's why. Look at the April temperatures. Every day with red, that's when we had above average temperatures, which is basically most of April. We had to lop off the first week of April, didn't have the data for that, but you get the idea. April was really warm, right? What about May? Well, May started out really warm, but it's cooled off in the last week. We missed a couple days of data there, but it was cooler than average. So the point here is April, most of April, and the first week of May were way above average. And for the rest of the West, this is for Portland, the rest of the West, even more above average than we were. So that's why we saw the snowpack decline the way it did. We got off to a healthy start, Blair, but you know, we like to keep it as long as we can, both for water supply and to help mitigate the fire season.
Yeah, very much so. Well, Matt Zaffino, so interesting. Thanks so much.
You bet.
We're back after this. Well, now to an update on changes to Oregon's bottle bill. We told you about Senate Bill 992 last night. It would limit the hours stores accept cans and bottles from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now, for smaller stores like convenience stores, they could stop taking cans at 6 p.m. if there's an alternative drop-off site nearby. Those sites are like this one, the People's Depot under the Morrison Bridge in Portland's Central East Side. The bill would also help expand programs like that around the city. Now, today, the bill passed the House with broad support with a 48-4 vote. It previously passed the Senate, meaning it's now headed to Governor Tina Kotek's desk for her to decide whether or not to sign it into law. After our story last night, we asked for your comments. And here's a voicemail from Sharon.
People may be using it for drugs, but there are also people that use it to feed their families. There are nonprofits that use it to raise money for their charity work.
A viewer on YouTube wrote, "It is hard because not everyone is abusing drugs that recycles for cash. A lot of working people supplement their income. You take it away and you are punishing people who are innocently just recycling to buy additional groceries. And will the drug addicts turn to more property theft or other crimes to support their habit?" Now, some of you think the bill doesn't go far enough.
Stores shouldn't have to take bottles back anymore. That's been going on from the beginning. It clogs up the dang store and whatever. Why not just set up 1 or 2 bottle stores only and not have the local stores having to take bottles in?
Vicky agreed, writing, "I wish they would eliminate the bottle drop centers. I have one in my neighborhood on 122nd, and it is a big draw for the homeless and druggies. It's not a positive thing in our neighborhood. I know the bill does not encourage recycling, but I wish we didn't have the program at all." And that's something that Craig agrees with.
I think the bottle bill is antiquated. We don't have a deposit on cardboard boxes or plastic containers. There's many things that now get recycled that don't have a deposit associated with them. I think it's totally antiquated, needs to be eliminated, no question in my mind.
Anne was on the other side, writing, "These changes are worth a try. If they don't go far enough or problems develop, the bill can be modified again. It's to Oregon's credit that the bill has gone so long with only the redeem amount changed." And Julia wrote to us saying, "If the concern about bottle redemptions is cash for drugs, a possible solution would be to issue debit or gift cards for redemptions instead of cash. That at least would add a layer of difficulty in converting cans to drugs." All right, well, today we asked the Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative, or OBRC, about that idea. They run the bottle redemption program. In a statement, they told us policymakers have varying perspectives on this question. "We are always willing to review policy proposals and share information about the feasibility of operationalizing an idea to change how people receive their refunds." Well, it has been a bit of a whirlwind week at Washington State's capital in Olympia. Governor Gov Ferguson signed dozens of bills into law over the course of the last 2 days, ranging from changes to gun laws to new taxes. He also signed off on the state's operating budget for the next 2 years. It's a roughly $78 billion package that includes both new taxes and cuts to state services in order to make up what was projected to be a $16 billion deficit, over the next 4 years. Among those new taxes is a bump to the state's gas tax. Starting July 1st, you'll pay an additional 6 cents a gallon at the pump. Business owners and the state's top investment earners will also be facing a tax increase.
I hear those concerns. I hear it loud and clear. We did our best in this budget to balance our approach and also try to take an approach that sets us up for the future.
He also said he used his veto powers to remove roughly $25 million from the budget, though all tax increases were left in. Ferguson says he wants to see how the taxes pan out, but said he's not opposed to making changes.
There are some revenues there that I think require a closer look to make sure there are not unintended consequences. So I would not be surprised if you see some changes beyond technical changes to those revenue streams in the supplemental budget.
Now, some of those changes may also depend on federal cuts. Apart from the budget, the governor signed a controversial bill regarding gun sales, similar to Oregon's controversial Measure 114. Beginning in 2027 in the state of Washington, you'll need a permit to purchase a gun. That includes gun safety training. Ferguson also authorized a 0.1% sales tax that cities and counties can implement for criminal justice purposes. For a more complete list of the bills recently signed into law in Olympia, head to our website, kgw.com. Stick with us. We're back right after this. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air the episode at 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. on our TV app, KGW+. And you can catch it the following morning at 11:30 as well. Download that free app right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Wednesday night, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.